All right. Party people in the place to be, vandals, and whatever else might be lurking out there in the darkness. We are Pink Buzz back with a brand new episode. And this episode, we're going to be talking about something fun, one of the more divisive ideas of fandom. Joey, what are we talking about on this episode?
We're going to be discussing adaptation, comic book adaptations, whether it be a movie, a show. We might even touch on like video games have been making some pretty quality video games have been coming out based off comic books. We would have animes that have been mangas that have been turned into animes or even adapted to movies. So we'll be touching on a little bit of everything and how comic books have now been adapted to almost every genre of media that's out there now.
Yeah, it really is become like a key art form of our time, which is pretty cool. I've always waited for it to happen, and I think it's a good time for it because we have the technology to really pull it off and make it look good. And let's see what our buddy Juan is saying. He's here at the bar with his nephew. Let's hope your nephew is of age, Juan, because the night might end badly for you if you got a 6 year old at the bar with you.
Some places, yeah, but some places don't frown on that, man. They let you bring your kid in and have a drink. Depending on what kind of small towns, some small towns, man, they're like, it's community. You come in and have a beer, it's all right. The kid, as long as they'll go play darts or whatever, play some
That
pool.
that's cool, then. I didn't know that they let you do that. I thought you had to.
Well, it's frowned upon a little bit nowadays, but back when I was younger, you could bring your kids to the bar.
He's of age, and oh, Lorraine's here. How you doing? Cheers to that. Chin chin. Everybody, raise your glasses to Juan's
Mm-hmm.
of age cousin at the bar with him. Uh,
Mm.
okay. Who? We're not going to talk about Demon Slayer because they haven't done a movie for it yet, or a live action movie. But it is based off of a manga. But I only read maybe the first two books. Michael had me read them. We were supposed to do an episode on it for Nerds From. Never came to fruition. It's cool for a little shonen thing, so yeah. But I'm
But
not familiar with it enough to talk about it.
it has a series on Netflix.
Yeah, the cartoon is massively huge, but from what I
Yeah,
understand, the anime is more read than the Bible. It's one of the top selling pieces of literature in the world right now, next to One Piece, which is astonishing to me. That manga is just outselling everything. Like American
yeah,
comics, you think Batman sells? Batman sells pretty good, right underneath One Piece, like way
yeah,
right underneath One Piece.
yeah. They know how to do it, man. They know how to sell their shit. Mm. Hey Zod, what's up? Mm.
But yeah, before we get into our adaptation talk, we got our check-in, Joe. Like, what have you checked out this week?
My check-in's gonna be very simple. I checked out a show that you recommended called Arcane that's playing on Netflix, and man, I really dug it. You have to get through the first. I felt the first two episodes kind of were used to build the world to set it up so that we know what kind of world that this is taking place and like the politics, they establish that, and then episode three is when it really kicks in. The story really starts to get going, and man, I really dug it. It was really good. Thanks for the rec, man. People should go check it out. It's really cool.
Yeah, we get the last three episodes of the season tomorrow too, which should be cool.
Drop tomorrow. Yeah, no, like if you want something animated, that's and I love like Powder when they do the time jump and stuff, and like the style when she goes through her freakouts. Oh, it's so cool. The stylized action. I loved it. It was really good. Mm.
With like the jagged line pencil
Yeah,
art over
yeah.
the yeah, that was it
So
looked like
cool. So
how
cool.
I would want like the Suicide Squad movie to look when Harley Quinn's freaking out. You know what I mean? It's like they
Yeah,
captured what like the Suicide Squad people were kind of missed in my opinion when
yeah,
Jinx is having her little freakouts.
yeah, yeah. It's cool. I love that. It was really well done. Stylistically, it's a beautiful. It's a it's got a painterly style, I'd say, to the art. Like it's an animated 3D show, but the art style is pretty cool because it has like the texturing has a painterly style to it, which adds to the aesthetic. It's very pleasing, very nice, like cityscapes, and the world building in this is incredible. Like
I also like it
very
because it's high concept, but it's not just traditional fantasy. You got all kinds of crazy magic sniper rifles and boxing gloves and like all the neat ingenious little things that they have going
yeah.
on in the world.
It's got some heavy steampunk elements to it for sure. Like I'd compare it to maybe the video game Dishonored. If anyone's played that, it's got some very like kind of similar vibes to Dishonored, I'd say.
In
Yeah.
art style, it kind of reminds me of BioShock, but like if the people who did the comic book Carbon Gray colored the video game
Hmm.
BioShock, you'd get what this show looks like.
And obviously, it's going to get video game vibes because this is based off a video game, right? The League of
Yeah,
Legends isn't. It's a video game, so
yeah, League
yeah.
of Legends, but it's kind of like a team RPG thing. So like the
Mhm.
characters are like little chibi looking things. So it's quite a bit different artistically than how the game looks, but oh man, it's gorgeous. It's a hardcore show too. You start watching it and you're like, "Oh, this is about little girls." And then you get to like the betrayal and like that last episode with the monkey
Uh,
and oh, it's just
yeah,
so brutal. It's heartbreaking.
it
You're just
is.
like, "Yeah."
It is. Oh, they don't like. That's what I'm saying. Like the first two episodes are a little, they're establishing the characters, their relationships, and then like, boom, episode three happens, and it's like, fuck, they kick the story into full gear, man. It's like high octane after that. It's really, really well done.
Hey, it's Lucy Goosey. What are you doing? You're the perfect person to be yelling play Freebird too, man. Cuz like Goose, if you left here tomorrow, I would still remember you. I just want you to know that, man.
Mm. Hey Mel, Mel popped into the chats. How's it going?
Yeah. Happy Friday, Mel.
Yeah,
I'm gonna not
and
say what I was thinking of saying because, but
I don't,
yeah, dude.
I, I don't know what you were gonna say, but we'll just leave it at that. the other part of the other part of my check-in, uh, I started reading Akira. I think last Saturday after we did the show. I think I cracked it open and I blasted through the first four volumes. I bought the 35th anniversary edition. It's the big box set, and man, I just can't put that thing down. Akira's been amazing, amazing. I've only seen the movie, the anime, and I watched that maybe well over maybe 15, 20 years ago was the last time I watched that. So once I'm done reading this, I'm going to hit the movie up again and rewatch the movie and to get like the full Akira experience. But man, anyone, if you haven't read this yet, like me, I'm reading through it for the first time. Oh, it's so goddamn good.
We
So
are gonna
goddamn good.
we are gonna talk about that a little later on tonight. So I'll get
Yeah.
into the movie and the comic book. So because
Mhm.
I'm a huge fan of both. But yeah, that is going to get reintroduced into conversation
Later on.
later because
Yeah.
it is a part of the tonight. But yeah, for me, like you, I've been watching Arcane. I didn't mention it last week because it was Full House, but yeah, that was like my main pick last week. And this week I watched a show. I'm late to this party, but I'm happy I caught it. It's called Love, Death, and Robots. It's a Netflix thing.
Hmm.
It's a anthology show, and they're basically little short movies. Most of them animated, some of them are live action, and most of them are sci-fi and actually have robots in them, but there are some
Hmm.
straight up horror ones as well. But every single episode was wonderful. I mean, every single one of them is really smart, really well done, has great stories and really great art. There was a few that caught me by surprise because I thought they were live action at first, and it wasn't until I got a close up look at some of the CGI character animations to see that like these were actually some of them were they must have been video game cutscene people or something like, especially the one about the Russians with the crazy monkey fire monkeys that they had to fight. It was towards the end of the first season. Like
Yeah.
that one at the beginning, I thought it was live action until I saw like you look at the Russian guy's face and you're like, oh, he's CGI.
Yeah. Oh, it's and like each episode has its own story, its own style, which is great because basically it's like the animated version to let's say Black Mirror, right? It it's really awesome. Instead of it just being like a story about technology and how it affects society, it's straight sci-fi, and with some wild stories, some great animation. They even get some pretty known actors to play some of the roles in some of these
Yeah,
episodes.
there
So
was an episode that had Topher Grace and Mary Elizabeth Winstead in it, where they had
yeah,
a civilization living in their freezer, which
in
was
their
it was
freezer.
such a good. Yeah, it was such a. It reminded
Yeah,
me of
I
an
mean,
'80s movie. It reminded me of something like Batteries Not Included, or you remember those movies
yeah,
like that?
yeah.
Yeah.
I watched those as a kid, man. I must have watched Batteries Not Included at least a dozen times. Yeah,
It totally had like that type of vibe to it. It
yeah,
was a really
yeah.
good
Oh,
little
there's some
show.
great ones, and the second season just dropped. I think maybe 3 months ago, or maybe a little bit more. And I think I've watched the first 4 episodes. I still haven't finished the second season yet, but yeah, it was really good. Really good
Yeah,
show. It's definitely worth checking out if you're a sci-fi fan and animation fan. It's really good.
and I read a bunch of stuff, but it was all reread stuff, so I'm not really gonna get too into it. But I kind of been in a '90s kick, so I read like Atomic City comics and uh, uh, Scud the Disposable Assassin, stuff like that's kind of what I've been rereading. I've been taking pictures and putting it on Discord, but yeah, I've just been on like that Jim Mahfood shit, Rob Sharab, and having a good time with it, reliving my nostalgia days, which is great that we're going to be talking about what we're talking about tonight because adaptation started really early with me as a kid. I'd probably say my earliest one that really got into my heart, into my soul, would be the Ninja Turtle film because
Mm,
as a young boy, like that was so important to me. I mean, any kid that was around in my time or probably even younger than me, like by a couple years, is life was ruled by those four brothers of
yes,
turtles.
Ninja Turtles, and that still holds up today. I'll
The
watch
film,
that
oh
movie.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
one of
I
the
might be
best,
watch once every year. I think I watch that movie, the first one.
and it's one of the better comic book adaptations too. Like the only thing
Mm-hmm.
that they really did different is they went with the cartoon April O'Neil as a reporter instead of Baxter Stockman's secretary. That's like the biggest change from the movie from to the comic book. But
And I think
um,
that influenced later other iterations of it too, because she's a reporter in a lot of the other versions too. So it had an influence there on the turtles.
yeah, and but adaptation, it's a tricky thing in my opinion. It's a thing that needs to be handled well. It is a thing that I'm very fond of because the type of art I do, especially for the thumbnails and stuff, I consider a type of found art, and I'm a huge fan of found art. I love the idea that you could take something that somebody else made and you can literally make it something that you did by just tweaking it a little bit and playing with it. And that's basically what adaptation is.
Hmm.
And there is an art behind it, though.
Yeah,
But ultimately, I find it a good thing. How do you genuinely view adaptation, Joe?
I am very fast and loose with the way I accept adaptation. I know it's a different. We take sequential art and we're bringing it into another medium which has different rules, different standards. Like movies, you have your PG, R, and all this, and sometimes they have to change the story. They have to adapt it to fit these criterias. And some books they have budgets. Like movies are very costly and they have budgets, so sometimes they have to change the story to help fit it into a budget so they can tell this story on the big screen or on television. And I'm very conscious of this, so I'm very lenient with uh, when they take liberties with the story, or I don't get all bent out of shape like some super fans do, where they like go on Twitter and just set the world on fire because I don't know, they fucking Superman's shorts weren't red enough, or I don't know, like stupid shit like that. But like, and I enjoy it when they make changes, especially like one example would be maybe Walking Dead. The introduction of the character Daryl, like a great character that's awesome. He's not in the books, and they introduced him into the show, and it's fantastic. And it adds a new element that someone who may have read the books, a new element that wasn't there that they can enjoy from week to week, that they don't know what's coming with this character because he was never in the original story, which is the beauty of adaptations. It's not they're not telling a straight story of the original story, or that's there. They're taking a story and basing it off of that. And I think people lose sight of that often when we talk about these adaptations from comic books or mangas or whatever, what have you.
Right,
Mm.
because I forget what it's called when you do it's a direct interpretation, and that you do get those in film. Like Sin City was a direct interpretation. Frank Miller wasn't adapting his own work; he was taking it from one medium and putting it into another. Whereas something like, the Constantine film is an adaptation, and
Mm-hmm.
it is one of the better ones to point out because, like we talked about in our guilty pleasures episode, it threw most of the source material away and just created its entire own universe and versions of the characters and everything. So
Yeah.
um and it did it with respect in a weird way, though. So
Yeah.
like and
Hey, Ronan's in the house all the way from Australia. How's it
crikey,
going, buddy?
mate, it's good to see you, dude. It's Oh man, I'm happy you're up this late to hang out with us, man. You're very
Yeah.
welcome.
Like, and I know Constantine gets shit on a lot online, but I love that movie. Pat and we watch. That's another one I watch probably once a year. I love that movie. Like, I don't care what people's complaints are. The movie on its own, like if Hellblazer didn't exist, and it still holds up today. Like we talk about it every time we mention this movie. We always have to bring up one thing: the devil. What a beautiful design, right? The white suit with the tar on the feet, and just breathtaking. It's just amazing. It's really good. Like there's so many good things to that movie that I don't see how people could hate on it so much.
Well, whoever the costume designer in general was, because I also like what they did with Tilda Swinton's angel outfit
With the yes, the
with the
tags
medical
or
bracelets. Yeah.
bracelets, yeah, awesome. It's just, and they're so sharp. Like they're dressed to kill in that. Like everybody's dressed to kill in that movie. It's awesome. It's great.
But yeah, when it comes down to it, I really don't understand the idea that so many people want the book directly told to them, because I get that it's a story you love, but don't you want it to be something new that you're seeing? I mean, that's how I look at it. That's why when I see things like Zack Snyder's Watchmen, and he completely changed the ending. At first, I sat there in the theater and I'm like, "Oh, that son of a bitch, he did it. He ruined." And then I sat there and I thought about it and I'm like, "Dude, you know what? That ending actually makes more sense for a film than dropping a big plastic squid on a city would in a film. The ending works
Yeah,
perfect in a comic book, but I'm thinking about it as a movie. I'm
yeah,
like, I think that the actual having fake Dr. Manhattan bombs kill everybody made a bit more of sense for a live action version than what we would have really gotten.
yeah,
And
for sure.
Manu's here too. Hey buddy. Nice to meet you,
Yeah,
man.
creator
Natar
from
was.
yeah, creator of Tales from the Interface is in the house joining us tonight in the chats. Uh, you could go check out if anyone is on our Discord. He posted the link where you could go pick up his book on our Discord. And if anyone's not part of the Discord and would like to join, well, we could put it in the links after and post it in the comments, and you could come join our Discord.
It was surprising, and I gotta agree with you. I think that I think it was great, to tell you the truth. Like, all in all, as far as I'm concerned, The Watchmen is Zack Snyder's only good WB movie or DC movie. So
Okay. I was gonna say I enjoyed 300, man. I thought that was a solid movie, which is
yeah,
him,
that's
right?
Dark Horse though. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but still, it's one of his. I mean, yeah, cool, man. So, are we gonna get into our picks, or do you still want to touch on maybe how people are nitpicky, or are we gonna get into the nitty gritty here?
You want to get into the nitty gritty? Because I was gonna play around with the idea of adaptation, maybe talk about manga a little bit, because it's just
Yep.
something we're gonna touch on. But
Okay.
it is a good way to look at it, because the entire idea of the art form anime is based off of adaptation. Almost all of anime, there are some OPs, but almost all of it is based off of manga. And a lot of it is very loosely adapted too. It's there are your straightforward ones, but a majority of the shows will take some huge liberties. Huge.
Which brings me to a question that I'm not very familiar with that you're a big fan of is Cowboy Bebop. They have their show just came out on Netflix for the live action. There's the anime, the series, but was that based off of a manga or was it originally just an anime?
Uh-uh. The manga, there is a manga for it, but it came out afterwards, and
After
they're
the
kind of like,
anime?
yeah.
Okay.
See, the anime was originally Bandai wanted new spaceships to make models out of, so they got this studio to Bones to make a show for them, and that's basically what Cowboy Bebop came out of. The most generic idea
Okay.
ever. It was supposed to just be a show that had cool new spaceships in it so they could sell models, and ended up becoming a cultural phenomenon. But that is a neat thing to bring up because today dropped the brand new live action adaptation of
Mhm.
Cowboy Bebop, which I'm going to dive into after the show. And it's quite contentious itself, and the idea of a cartoon jumping into live action is it's somewhat new territory, especially considering with anime. It hasn't fared well, at least in the U.S. I can think of Death Note and
Death
Ghost in the
Note, yeah.
Shell, which
Yeah.
neither were particularly well liked. But
No.
I don't know. This show looks like it might have some kind of charm with how grindhouse they're trying to portray it. That's the one thing I can see is they're really trying to be like, hey, look, we took Cowboy Bebop and we Tarantino'd it, and that might work. It very well might.
Hmm.
We'll see, but yeah, that's going to be an interesting thing to look at. But like you brought up earlier, one of my favorite cases of adaptation would have to be Akira because
Yeah.
Otomo himself took his own masterpiece. He abridged it, he condensed it, he truncated it, and he turned it into one of the greatest animated films of all time, which
Hmm.
doesn't lose any of the guster of his graphic novel series, which is insane to me because he cut, I don't know, almost 100% of it out to make the film.
A huge amount. Huge. And I was thinking, I'm reading this, right? And I'm like, man, there's a lot here. And I was thinking, it's going to lag. The story's going to get stale. It's going to maybe get boring at times. But man, it keeps going. Like I'm on volume 5 now, and each volume is about 300 to 400 pages. And man, it hasn't let up. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. And like they did a great job of, like you said, condensing it into what is it, about 2 hours, Akira?
Yeah, I think it's
Like they
about
did.
hour and 45 minutes, something like that.
Okay. Oh, man, you said his manga wasn't finished by when they made the movie, so that may explain why he condensed it. But man, like I can't wait to finish this and then rewatch Akira. I'm all hyped for it now. Like, this Akira book is really good. I'm enjoying it way more than I thought I ever would.
Music is a big part of Cowboy Bebop. From what I understand, they use in the soundtrack. From what I've read, they actually just redid a lot of the episodes in live action for that. But back to Kira, one of the neat things that I love to tell people, because one thing that they pisses a lot of people off when they watch the movie for the first time that I know is they'll be like, "Why do they even call it Akira? He's not even a character in the movie. He's dead." I'm like, "Read the comic.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
totally up in there, man." Like, big part too.
The only thing I'll say negative about the movie is, man, I'm gonna have to count when I rewatch it. I'm gonna count how many times they say Tetsuo. Tetsuo! Like how many times they scream it.
Tetsuo! Yes,
Tetsuo! They scream it like a million. I'm gonna count it. I'm gonna get a counter. I'm gonna count how many times they scream it in the movie when I rewatch it. It's
hey,
crazy.
anime movies do that though, especially with dudes'
Yeah.
names. Like if you watch Appleseed, it's Briarios. Dune is always yelling Briarios. So like, yeah, that's
Mhm.
just kind of like a. That is a
Or
good point, Pops. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a really neat adaptation, and the cool thing about that one is it actually adapts American history, which is kind of a neat thing to do. But yeah, the whole anime yelling the dude's name.
Kaneda, yeah, Kaneda too. Yeah, in the book, yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that's the cool thing about the comic too, is Kaneda ain't really shit in the comic. He's
Kaneda.
a side character, which is so cool that he is the lead of the film. Like that's something that like you only get with an adaptation. And
Oh,
when you
he's
have
got
the
it. I think he has a pretty big part in the manga, man. Like, I mean, he disappears for a little. I don't want to give anything, but fuck it, it's old. Like, if you haven't read it yet, like me, then fuck you, man. If I fucking spoil it for you, tough shit, man. But it's such a small part, you'll love it anyway. So, but he has a pretty substantial part in it. I found right up until he disappears, and then but they elaborate on all the characters in this book, which is why I think it's so dense and done well. Like it's I can't say enough good things about it.
Yeah, Yamagata's death when Tetsuo shoots him in the first book, like I don't know why
Mm-hmm.
they didn't keep that in the film. Like they just kind of cut away, and like I think it would have been a lot more impactful if they had actually had the revolver murder scene.
Yeah.
Because
Mm, mm, yeah. Yeah. Akira is a classic, and for good reason. It deserves all the praise it gets. And
oh, and
if you haven't, if you're one of the few people that haven't seen the anime yet or read the manga, I strongly suggest you do one or the other. I don't think it really matters. See, I watched the anime first and I read the manga after, and it didn't. I enjoyed it just as much, but I did only watch it like maybe 15, 20 years ago, so my recollection isn't as fresh. But you know, I mean, because the manga has so much more to offer. So I think you can watch the movie first if you wanted to. Mm.
I want that jacket. I know it's so trendy and everybody wants that jacket, but like I would totally rock Kaneda's jacket. I'd hang it up next to my Thriller jacket. That's it. Like I just really need like a cool collection of red leather jackets for movies. Like I'll have the Thriller jacket, I'll have the red jacket from Step Up to the Streets, the red jacket from Akira. Yeah, man.
Another one that we had talked about in the past is you even brought it up a little bit is the Ghost in the Shell,
Yes.
and I watched the anime first and read. I've only read the first volume, the first book, book one. But man, that's one where I think I prefer the anime. Like they did a great job. That's an adaptation where I think I prefer the adaptation to the original. The
I love the
mood, the
manga, I
setting.
do, but there's just something about the grittiness, and that's a neat thing about adaptation is Ghost in the Shell hasn't been the same since I forget his name. They made his film. Um, you get the great shows that came after it, like Standalone Complex and Arise, that are all built off of the film because
Mhm.
of just because people really liked that procedural cop thing. I mean, there was a lot of fun to the kind of snarky, sexualized
Yeah.
version of it that was in the comic, but there was just something unreal about at the time having, something that was like Blade Runner meets Law and Order with,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? That just
Yeah.
was so badass
Hmm.
when you watch Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah. It was great. Like I think that's right around I like Ghost in a Shell, Akira, Ninja Scrolls wasn't too long after I watched that. Like I got on a little phase there where I was watching a bunch of anime and movies, and you know, and those are the two that stood out. Those three were the stood out, and I never really got into the manga thing. I've touched on it a little bit. Like now I'm starting to read Akira, and it's really good. Like I mean, sequential art, right? Whether it's a manga or American style comics or European style comics. I mean, a well told sequential story is a well told sequential story. I mean, if it's done well, it's amazing, and there's nothing better than it.
Well, and the neat thing about adaptation and Ghost in the Shell is it's been done in almost every format now. It's jumped
Yeah,
from a comic book to cartoon, and now it's a live action
live
film.
action.
Hopefully, it'll get adapted into a better live action film somewhere down the line, but it's one of the few that's probably
Mhm.
got the triple crown of being, you know, several different types of media at once. There's
Did
also
it?
been a couple of really good video games for it too.
That's what I was going to ask you if it did hit. So it's got the triple crown, right? Or the well, quadruple crown, really, if you count the video games in with it. So yeah, that's one that touched every genre pretty much. That's awesome. Mm.
Oh, you
And
never
then
watched any anime, Mel? Oh, go ahead, Joe.
uh yeah, so that one and another one I got into that was more recent was Death Note was another one I loved. But I haven't read the manga. I've That's why I didn't put it in my list of top. If I would have read the manga and seen the series, the anime series and stuff, it probably would have made the list of my shows. But because I didn't read the manga, I didn't feel like I have enough knowledge like of the adaptation. But no, that's another one that you had the manga, you had the animated series, and then they made a live action movie through Netflix. So that one made it through three different genres as well.
They had a whole franchise of live action movies in Japan too. I think there
Mm-hmm.
was three core films, and they made a film about L. And yeah, so like there was quite a few live action Death Note films. But yeah, there's the Netflix one too. Mel, I got a few that I can recommend really fast. If you're actually interested as a horror fan, you would like one called Another. Like that is probably one of the creepiest ghost story I've ever seen. So yeah, if you want to check an anime out, like I think it's on Netflix. But back to Death Note. The manga is really close to the anime. I
Mm-hmm.
can't really even think of anything that they took out. But the film, the Netflix film, like they should bury that thing next to the video games in a landfill somewhere in New Mexico, man. Like, oh, that should
Come
be
on,
forgotten
come
about.
on. It's not that bad. It wasn't that bad. Come on.
It wasn't Electra, but I mean, it was pretty bad. So, are you ready to get
Yeah.
into the nitty gritty now, brother? You want to start this
Yeah.
off?
Yeah, sure, man. So, what, we gonna start with movies?
Yeah, we're gonna start this off with movies.
All right, man. We'll do it's not really a top five. It's just five of some of my favorites, kind of based on nostalgia and what got me going and had an impact on me at a young age. So I'll let you post the picks, and I'll just mull through it as you post the picks up. So I have no particular order. It's not like number 1, 2, 3, 5 or whatever. It's just
Okay,
yeah.
well, here you go.
All right, Batman. So that was like probably the first, aside from Superman. I watched Superman as a kid on VHS, but the first time I went to the theater to see a superhero movie was Batman. And let me tell you, as a 12-year-old, that movie just blew my mind. I loved it. I mean, bringing a comic to life so well that everything looked cool. The choreographies, the fights today may not stand up as well, but back then it was pretty solid. And I mean, I love this movie, and it just showed the potential that uh, when handled properly, what cinema can offer in an adaptation of a comic. Like, you know, and a lot of people were critical of Michael Keaton being cast as Bruce Wayne, but man, he pulled it off. Full marks to him. It was great. I think even Jack Nicholson, some people were like, oh, Jack is a little huskier. He's a little too heavy to maybe play the Joker. I think people were even critical about the casting of Jack Nicholson, but he knocked it out of the park too. So, man, like, I give this film full marks. Tim Burton just started making a name for himself. I think he may have put out Edward Scissorhands just before this. Yeah,
I
full
think he
marks to
just
Tim
did
Burton.
Beetlejuice. He'd made
Beetlejuice and
Frankenweenie and
Edward.
Beetlejuice. This was like his
Okay.
second real film,
Mm-hmm.
from what I
So
understand.
yeah, so he was pretty young, not super well established, but a rising star director at the time, and yeah, so
Don't forget that soundtrack too by Prince, man.
like Prince, yeah. Hey, people love
Party
Prince, man.
man. Yeah, dude, it's a good soundtrack.
Yeah, people love Prince, man. And then they incorporate it directly into the movie with Jack just dancing on the float, and So it was a nice way to incorporate the soundtrack right into the movie as well. So full marks there. I definitely love this one, and it'll always hold a special place in my heart as an adaptation from the Batman series. All right, next up, this movie didn't get enough love when it came out. Dread. It came out in 2012. Uh, it was directed by Pete Travis and written by Alex Garland, whom people might know better for his work as a writer director on Ex Machina and Annihilation as well. He's the writer director on that, and he also wrote on 28 Days Later, which is one of my favorite zombie movies from the modern era. And obviously, Carl Urban does a fantastic job playing Dread in this. You have Olivia Thirlby, who plays Judge Anderson, I believe is her name.
Yeah, Anderson.
Yeah, and you have Lena Headey, who plays Mama, who most people may know better from her role on Game of Thrones as what's her name on Game of
Cersei
Thrones?
Lannister.
There you go. She plays her on Game of Thrones, which most people probably know her from that. And that is the cast in this is just great. Like great performances all around. The action, the aesthetic. It isn't cheesy. It's very dark, gloomy, urban. They're trapped in this big building. I mean, it's what a Dread movie should be. It's great. Carl Urban is very subtle. He doesn't go over the top, or he's very straight faced. Yeah, it's a great movie. The slow, like the effects in it too. Like there's a drug called slow mo, and some of the scenes with the slow mo, man, it's beautiful.
Well, they created a special camera. It was a brand new camera that was created just for this film to film the slow motion scenes for it. So that was pretty cool.
And it's
there was
beautiful.
Actually new technology made for it.
Yeah, some of my favorite slow motion scenes are in this movie. Beautifully done. Well, it's great. Like I watched this and it did extremely poorly at the box office. Like really bad. I think probably one of the worst movie performances ever at the box office, and I don't understand why, because it's such a good movie. And if you guys haven't, yeah, possibly that's probably one of the reasons why. Poor marketing. And I mean, he just nails Dread. Nails him. Like just a serious, straight face, like I don't think he cracks a single joke throughout the whole movie, right? Carl Urban doesn't have one single cheesy one-liner, I don't think, throughout this whole movie, to my recollection. So like it's perfect Dread. And I think the Mega City 1 is still in production. They're supposed to be doing a series, Judge Dredd series, and I think it's still in production. I think they're still working on it, so that possibly might still come out, which would be awesome if they handled that as well. Yeah.
How do you feel about the Sylvester Stallone one? Just wondering. Do you hate it like everybody else, or?
I don't hate it. Like most things, I don't hate a lot of stuff in life, but it is what it is. I mean, it's Stallone, right? I mean,
yeah.
And you had what's his name, cheesy boy there,
Armand Asante.
Is that?
You're talking about Rob Schneider.
Rob Schneider, who he's fucking dragging around on his motorbike on the back, and I don't know. Yeah. So hey, top notch, top marks to this movie. Like, love this movie, and I'll always put on all my lists because I find it doesn't get enough love. Not enough people watch it. So yeah, get on it, people. If you haven't watched it yet, definitely get on it. Here's one that a lot of people might not like. New Mutants. With all the hate this movie got and all the bad press, a lot of poor critiques as well. I watched this movie specifically for the N Pod when we were recording for the N Pod, and we thought we were going to have a movie to tear apart, right? We thought we were going to berate this movie on the pod, and it turns out every one of us loved it, and all we did was shower this movie with praise when we did the episode, thinking we are going to tear it apart. But no, we all loved it. And I mean, this I think is my favorite X-Men movie,
That's the
aside from
only,
maybe.
yeah, it's my favorite too, besides the Deadpool ones.
Yep, yeah. Like with it for a team, like Deadpool isn't really a team. Well, the second one might be, but yeah. But man, like the characters, and they didn't beat around the bush. Like I think the runtime is maybe under an hour and 45 minutes, somewhere around there, an hour and a half. Like they moved the story along pretty quick. There's some great horror elements in it. The Demon Bear is in it. The casting I thought was really solid. The acting was solid. Like, what's his name? The little dragon.
Lockheed.
Yeah, Lockheed's in it, and he's awesome. And I love the way they incorporated him into it. And yeah, who's the girl who plays? She was on
Maisie Williams.
Anya Taylor-Joy,
Oh.
Taylor-Joy, the one who was on the Queen's Gambit, as she plays Magic, and I think she does a great job as Magic. But basically, they all do a great job. Like I don't think a single. They're all good. Like there's Charlie Heaton. He was on Stranger Things. He plays the older brother. He was good. Alice Braga plays Dr. Reyes. She was like, can't complain about her. You have Maisie Williams, who was on Game of Thrones. People probably recognize her more from Game of Thrones. She plays Rhaenys. She was good. The only casting in here that I think people had issue with was maybe Roberto's casting, because he was too fair-skinned, and a lot of people were critiquing this movie based on that. A lot of the hate for this movie came from that. And I mean, he is Brazilian. He is a little bit fair-skinned. I mean, I'm not going to get into it. It's not something that, like, I respect people's opinions on that, you have to have more representation, and maybe, they're trying to whitewash the character, but I'm not going to get into it. As an actor, the role he played, I think he did a great job. Skin tone aside, I think he did a wonderful job. And who's the other character? Danny, played by Blue Hunt. She plays the native character, which was really good. Like, everybody in this did a great job, and I highly recommend it. Like, just go in with an open mind, watch this movie, and I guarantee you'll enjoy it. Like,
yeah, I'm kind of sad that we're probably never going to see this team in live action again, because I think the kids nailed it, and I would like to see more films, because I'm a New Mutants fan. Like I do not like A-list Team X-Men. You know what I mean? I like my obscure characters. So stuff like this really made me happy, and I liked that Lockheed was just a puppet through most of the film. But when real Lockheed shows up, I was just like, yes, dude!
yeah,
Like I had such a nerd chubby.
yeah, it was good which is great because, like you say, you have the little stuffed animal of Lockheed, so you think, oh fuck, they're not going to give us Lockheed. But then he shows up when she goes into the demon realm, I think, and when she comes back, then Lockheed's with her, and it's awesome. And he plays a pretty important role when they're fighting and stuff. So it's not like he's just there in the background. He does some cool stuff, and there's some cool scenes with them. So yeah, it's worth it. Like, I mean, they gave you everything you'd want from New Mutants, as far as I'm concerned. Especially for the early storylines, I guess, if you want to compare it to like the Demon Bear story and stuff. They touch on they delve into it for a first movie, thinking maybe they'd have sequels. I think they did a great job, because if they had a sequel to this, now the team would have been established, and I think the second one would have been. I run a parallel to X-Men and X-Men II. Like the first X-Men was okay, and then because the first X-Men established the team, number 2 just hits the ground running, and X-Men number 2 is fantastic. And I think this could have been the same scenario as those two films. Like the New Mutants, if they had a sequel, could have hit the ground running and would have been even better. Like, it would have blown the first one out of the water. I firmly believe that, and it's a shame we never got it.
All right. And speaking of which,
X-Men 2. This was my favorite X-Men movie until New Mutants came out. And I love this movie because it really established Hugh Jackman. I think this is the movie that really established him as Logan. Like, this is where he really, really he became the character. He was good in the first one, but this one is where it all came together for him. And has one of my favorite opening scenes ever for a movie with Nightcrawler, with the assassination scenes for the president. Love those scenes with the bam, bam, disappearing, reappearing. Like, so well done, and it's such a, and you know it's coming because you hear it, right? And it's like the anticipation because you hear the baff, baff, and then when you finally see it on the screen, it was like, oh, you get that like everyone cheering in the theater type moment, which was great, wonderful, loved it, man. Like, I can't praise this one enough either. I loved it. Like, Hugh Jackman is awesome, Nightcrawler was awesome, like the whole cast. Like, Magneto is such a badass in this one. It's great. Mystique was great in this. Like, I can't say enough good things about this movie. Like, and I think this is why everyone hates every other X-Men movie that came out, because it just can't measure up to this one, because it was almost a perfect X-Men movie for the main team, right? And it's wonderful.
and that's all five of yours.
Uh, is it? I already went through all five. I guess so, man. Yeah, that's all five. Shit.
All right.
I could do 10 if you want. Nah, I'm just kidding.
Looks like, Joey, I'm gonna start with the nostalgic one. This is a very important franchise for me, period, because shortly after watching this film, I became completely obsessed with the graphic novel for this and trying to find it, trying to get a hold of it, and it really drove me into the indie comic scene. I had already been reading some, like I'd been reading Ninja Turtles and Usagi Yojimbo and stuff, but this got me into the darker stuff, and it was searching for issues of The Crow, which like really got me to find stuff like Evil Ernie and stuff like that. So it's a film that really helped guide me into the comic book fan that I am now. But on top of that, it is a great adaptation of the graphic novel. I mean, there is some serious stuff changed. They put the whole thing about the if you hurt the bird, you can hurt the man, which is an aspect that I didn't think affected this film, but it ruined the rest of the franchise. But that's besides the point. This film here, it really, really tackles the important things of the book, and I think that Brandon Lee playing Eric Draven was just really good casting. It's a very tragic film because of what happened, but at the same time, it makes it so powerful because what the book and the movie is about. It just really, really drove home and really made it something iconic and something that just means the world to me and to a lot of other people. I know it's a very important comic book film for lots of folks, and I think that that's the reason why the reboot has never really gotten any traction, because I don't think anybody wants to see anybody else ever try to play Eric Draven. I'm sorry, but that's just how I sit with it. But I love the other casting as well. I like Michael Wincott as Top Dollar, so brutal, so that voice, and all the guys
Yeah.
that played like T-Bird and Tintin, and they really, really captured it. They really played some Detroit scumbags and just brought this desolate story of love and sacrifice to life, and it's just glorious. I don't know how else to put it. Like, The Crow is a must watch if you haven't seen it yet. I can't recommend it any higher. And if you've never read the graphic novel, oh man, you got to get on it. It is a true masterpiece, and I cannot recommend it any higher. Next up for
Yeah.
me is a newer one. This is a Netflix film called Extraction. It is based on probably the graphic novel I hate most in the world, called Q Dad, written by one of the Russo brothers and some other guy. It was such a cheesy just really badly done extraction story about this guy who supposedly hated his life, but had a one-liner for everything, that has to go in and save this drug cartel princess. And there's a forced romance between the two, and it was just a mess. It was just what you expected. It was cliches thrown at a wall. But when you watch the film is just this perfect depiction of this broken soldier trying to save this boy because it reminds him of his dead son, and how it makes him want to stay alive just a little bit longer to save this child. And it is so badass. Chris Hemsworth is so cool. I've always liked him. I thought he was fun as Thor, but he really proved to me that he is a badass and he is a good action star with this film. And I can't put enough of spin on it. Like top marks for this film, like Joe's been saying for his, because the action scenes in this are so badass. Like there's literally one guy he picks up and swings by his feet, and he breaks another man's neck with them. I've never seen a person use another person as a baseball bat, but knowing how big Chris Hemsworth is, I actually believe the motherfucker could do it. You know what I mean? Honestly.
Yeah, yeah. There's some great action scenes in this movie. And I think this would be
Oh,
like one of the
what?
ones that fall in the category where the adaptation is far superior to the source material, right?
Oh, definitely. Oh, yeah, like I
Yeah.
said, like I do not have any time of day for the graphic novel. The first thing I did after I read it is I mailed it to my friend James Whitey from Ultimate Chance. He is where all the books I dislike go. Like he says, go ahead. He told me, go ahead and send them to me. I'll read them. So, like, yeah, if I don't like something, it's not because I'm being a dick. It's because I don't like wasting things. So if I don't like a book, that goes in a box for James. And yeah, Q Dad went straight to James. But the movie Extraction, I am so just impressed because there are so many awful movies based off of great graphic novels. It is so great to see a great movie based off of a terrible graphic novel. And
Yeah.
if you haven't watched it yet, it's on Netflix. Check this film out. There's a sequel for it
Hmm.
coming out soon. I don't know how
Yeah.
that's going to go, but I'm
Oh yeah.
definitely going to
I
check it
didn't.
out.
I didn't know that. I didn't know they were coming out with a sequel for it. So that means it must have gotten some good traffic on Netflix then. Must have gotten the clicks.
Ooh, we got Sergio in the house.
Up, Surge. Yeah, I enjoyed that movie as well. Like you say, the action in the beginning, like some of it's pretty brutal. It's really well done. Yeah.
Next up, we have what is my favorite comic book movie ever,
Yeah.
Hellboy 2, The Golden Army. I guess I could say that the first one was a great adaptation too, because it just nailed what it was trying to do. It wasn't a perfect adaptation. It took liberties. It got rid of Kate
Mhm.
Corrigan. It made Liz the love interest. When, if you read the comics, you know Liz and Abe are closer than Liz and Hellboy, but whatever. I think that there is something touching about the way Selma Blair and Ron Perlman portray the connection between the two characters. But the thing that really gets me about the Golden Army is I love how it tackled the aspect of the comic book that is one of my favorites, and that is how Hellboy finds himself at odds with what he's supposed to be doing, and how he almost sympathizes and feels that he could join the villains because they make more sense and they are more on the right side than the humans. The only thing is that the bad guys have gone as far enough to be extremists, and Hellboy can't get with that because they are just too gone in their cause. And I love that the Guillermo del Toro was able to capture the way him and Nuada had that relationship where like, dude, you're making sense, and like I could probably been homies with you about 10 years ago, but you're just gone too crazy for me. And I think the film just captures it beautifully, and I love that end sequence where they just tell the dude at the BPRD, man, you like pack rocks, dude, you suck. It's just
Yeah.
and the fight scene with the actual Golden Army, like how cool was that, man? Just these big steampunk knight things, and Hellboy's just ripping their arms off and beating them with them. And Del Toro knows how to make creatures. They just look so cool. And ah,
Very
dude,
true. Very true.
yeah.
Mm. He's a
So
master at it.
If you haven't seen this one, I highly recommend it. If you haven't seen either of the Hellboy movies, it's definitely a franchise worth checking out. It is tragic that we never got a third one, but like I've told people, I do like the Hellboy reboot. It is not as good as the Del Toro films, but whatever. I'm not going to cry about it. But at the end of the day, if you're going to watch anything, watch the Hellboy movies. They are definitely some of the most interesting and fun adaptations we've gotten out of American comic books because they're such a weird, obscure comic book that I wouldn't actually expect to get adaptations for them as soon as we did. But I am very thankful that we did because they were just so experimental. And I think that even though they didn't catch on and weren't as huge as they should be, they definitely influenced other filmmakers to take
Hmm.
risks and do kind of wild things with their films.
Yeah. Well, this is some of Pat's favorite movies. Were the two Hellboys. She loves those. And I think this, the first Hellboy movie, like you said, is a perfect example of an adaptation that maybe takes liberties, but captures the spirit or the idea of what they were going for. Like it interprets it in a different way, but still stays true to like the feel of it. The without following the story like beats perfectly or So yeah, it's really good. I agree with you on that. I love these movies. I probably watch at least one number one or two at least once every year as well.
Yeah, I gotta watch them both pretty much back to back. But yeah, two is my favorite comic book movie just because the troll market and all the
Yeah,
characters and creatures that he
yeah,
created. It is just so visually appealing and
yeah,
stunning from start to
yeah.
finish.
It is. It's a great movie.
Next up, I got History of Violence, which is an adaptation by my favorite English speaking film director, David Cronenberg, of a John Wagner comic, which is funny. We talked about Judge Dredd earlier because the
Mhm.
guy who wrote Judge Dredd wrote the comic book for this. And one of my things I love best about Cronenberg is all of his films are about what's it called when the butterfly changes?
The butterfly effect?
No, not the
What do you mean the
butterfly
butterfly?
effect.
No, but what do you
Um,
mean the butterfly changes? The
when a
cocoon?
butterfly,
Like,
yeah, when it goes from being a caterpillar and
ah,
uh,
shit. I don't know, man. Biology was so long ago.
yeah, all of his movies are about metamorphosis, and
Okay,
basically
yeah.
that this film, a lot of them are literal, but this one is so neat because it's about a guy who literally learned how to become a different person, and it's a mob story. It's about a guy who at one time was this crazy brother who ran a gang, and he got so crazy that he needed to leave town. And somewhere along the line, I don't know if he decided to go soft in the comic or the movie. They never really touch on why he became a dad and became such a stand-up citizen, but the mobsters end up finding him because he saves people in a diner that is being robbed, and he goes full sick house on them, and he gets recognized, and for one brief moment he metamorphoses back into his old self and murders the people that are coming after him, and then seamlessly goes back to being the dad, which I think is just a neat turn of events, and the way it's portrayed in the film and in the graphic novel, I think is done masterfully. But specifically in the film, the acting of Viggo Mortensen, he is always on point. He is probably one of the most underrated actors of our time. But in this film, oh my God, he is just so incredible. When he goes from being, I think his name is the dad is Jake, to being Joey, the mobster, like he gets this wild look in his eyes, like he is unreal the way he metamorphoses. So he is the perfect actor for Cronenberg to choose for this film, and my boy David Cronenberg just brought it home, man. Like he brought an obscure noir comic from the '80s to life in probably one of the most perfect ways ever. It does take some liberties here and there with the story, but not in any way that really affects it. And I think it's probably one of the most solid films you can check out, especially if you're a crime drama fan. Like History of Violence is just so badass. If you like Ed Brubaker and stuff, like this is definitely a film to check out.
Yeah, it was a good film. Very good. Oh, I concur.
And last but surely not least, I spoke about this a little earlier, so I'm not going to make this too. But this is actually straight up. It's not really an adaptation. It's just a uh, transfer of media. Frank Miller himself worked with Robert Rodriguez, and they just brought the comic book to life perfectly, panel to
Hmm.
panel, and it's a really solid film. It's very cheesy, it's very hammy, it's very cheesecake, but you know what? It's pulp noir, and that's what you're supposed to get out of all of that. So I think that it completely nails what it was going for, and the cast is just so superb. I do like the second one. I know a lot of people hate it, but I think the second one is okay. But the first film is just such an iconic piece of filmmaking. I love the way it looks. I love the
Hmm.
cheesy lines, like when Brittany Murphy's like, "You fool, you damn fool." Everything was just so perfect. Even the cheese, even the cornball was just laid on perfectly. So, yeah, dude, like Sin City, it is the probably the closest you'll get to like a comic book just crossed right over into a film. But it's neat to finally see somebody do that, because usually you do get the adaptation of somebody like, hey, I like this story, but I think it should have went this way. Whereas the Sin City film, it's just, hey, this is the way it's supposed to be, and this is the way it is.
Yeah, and the way they filmed this, it just nailed the aesthetic. It felt like the comic book as well, not just like you said, the story beats. Like it follows it panel for panel almost, but just visually, like they did such a fantastic job. Such a beautiful film.
Right, right. Now we're on to the wonderful world of television, and starting off
Actually,
once again.
actually, we forgot one of my movies, right? We didn't talk about Blade, did we?
Oh, you didn't send me a picture for Blade, so I don't.
I
That's probably why
didn't.
I didn't pull it up.
Whatever,
Okay.
whatever. We'll skip it.
No, go
Uh,
ahead. Talk about Blade. I love it.
yeah, Blade, man. Like after, because Blade came out right after The Crow, right? Like maybe a couple years after.
Yeah, I think The
Mm.
Crow was 84, and I think Blade was like 94, and I think Blade was
98. So
96,
4 years.
97.
So there was a long period there where there wasn't much coming out for like comic book content. So when Blade hit, I was just starving for something like this movie. And Wesley Snipes perfectly cast as Blade. I think he captured it. Like it's more of the modern interpretation than the original character. The way he was presented back in what was it? What book was he first appearance in? I can't
He was
remember the
from
book.
Spider-Man. Yeah, he was in Spider-Man, and he had the
And he
little
had
wooden stakes and the afro.
yeah, the afro. He was total disco with I think he had green and some bright colors. So this is more of the modern take. They followed more of the modern take on the character, and man, like this was a great movie, and that showed you visually, like just that opening scene at the rave when he walks in, and it just gave you so much, like so much action, like in a comic, and it's a little cheesy at times, like with his he has like cheesy one-liners and stuff like that. But I mean, I loved it. I thought it was a great. This is probably the first Marvel movie, right, that really hit the mark,
I
like
think it
on
was
the
the
big
first
screen.
theatrical Marvel movie. I think they had some
Yeah,
TV shit before this, but
yeah. But this is the first Marvel movie that made it to the big screen. That had success because there was what, three movies based off this and a TV
yeah, it
series,
was.
I think, after as well. Mm. And man, I thought they did a great job. They didn't incorporate very many other elements from the Marvel universe in this. I don't think. Did they really introduce any characters from? It was pretty self-contained. I think
No.
they didn't. Yeah, and Wesley
Yeah, I
Snipes,
think
like
they
I
just
said.
bought the rights to Blade and his side characters and like just left it at that. They didn't try to bring
Yeah,
anything else
yeah, they didn't try to.
like Werewolf by
Yeah,
Night or anything in.
expand. Yeah, which they could have. They could have easily done that, but they didn't. But on its own, like it was great. Who dir- the director wasn't super well known. I think he also directed League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and after that, his career died. So Stephen Norrington. but the writer on this is a pretty big name. Is David S. Goyer. He did Dark City. He wrote on The Dark Knight. He did. I think he wrote on the Constantine movie, which we mentioned earlier in the check-ins. So he was a pretty big name, and I think he did a great job of adapting the Blade character to the screen with his the story and the screenplay. He did a fantastic job and hit full marks for the writing on this.
Well, I mean, one thing about this film, besides being a comic book adaptation, is I think it's going to be important as a film because it's one of the first movies I saw that looked like this. It predates The Matrix by a good couple years too. By
Mm-hmm.
as long as it took for between The Crow and Blade, it took for The Matrix and Blade between Blade and The Matrix. And visually, the Matrix took so much from Blade. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
even joking. I mean, the way the fights are done, the way it looked, the color grading. It was one of the first really urban action films like that with the wire fu, and it was trend setting, even though it's kind of not known for that aspect of it. It's something
Mm-hmm.
that I've always appreciated about it. And I remember going and seeing it. I didn't know it was a comic book movie when I checked it out. I wasn't really into Marvel at the time. It was during my big indie Vertigo phase. So when I went and saw this, I was like digging it and stuff, and I was just like, Marvel. And I went and
Yeah.
looked at the Blade comics, and I was just like, you sure that's the same guy?
But this is where I think they took a, let's say, not your A-list character, right? It's a secondary character, and made this is the perfect example of how you can adapt. Let's say like James Gunn did with Guardians of the Galaxy. He takes like a C tier character or part of the Marvel like property, and you can take more liberties because there isn't as much history to the character, so you can add and subtract, and it won't affect like the story or like nobody critiques this for not following exactly Blade's origin or this or that or oh his suit or because Blade was like a B-list character that they just took and ran with it.
Well,
And I gotta say, man, he brought style to the superhero game. That muscle car, the way he dressed, like dude was styling. Like he
he
stepped
had the
up
best
to.
one-liners too. Straight up the some motherfuckers trying to skate uphill. Oh man, that's one of the greatest one-liners ever, man. Like that's why PG-13 Blade's never gonna be as good as R-rated Blade because he's not gonna
I'm
be able to
so
say
yeah.
cool shit like that.
I love the actor they got to play because he's great. Like Luke Cage was awesome till they killed off Cottonmouth. Then that show fucking sank like the Titanic after that guy wasn't on anymore. Yeah, he made Luke Cage, so maybe he'll be able to do the same with Blade, even though it's R-rated, man. I mean PG rated. So we'll keep our fingers crossed.
I guarantee you they're gonna make the vampire's blood green so they can still try to make it gory without
Oh man.
having to without trying to having to deal with that red blood R rating.
Yeah. Well, that was my other one that we forgot. I forgot to send you a pic. Oh well, doesn't matter. Anyway, everyone's seen Blade, right? You don't need a picture as a reference.
All right, on to
All right.
TV. So we're just gonna go in
TV.
order of what I have here.
Yeah. Oh, The Boys. Yeah. Gonna have a little conversation about this one. All right, so The Boys. This is based off of Garth Ennis' book called of the same name, The Boys. And I have maybe you see a reoccurring character here. I love Carl Urban. I love almost everything he does. So him as Butcher, whew, I love him as the Butcher. I mean, he's not quite the same as in the book. Like he's much more fits the style of today, with the scruffiness, and in the comic he was much more of a clean shaven big dude, but in this one he's he's got the leather jacket with the Hawaiian shirt underneath, and I love this version though. And I think this show is one of the shows where a lot of people like to say that the adaptation is superior to the actual books. I've heard a lot of
No,
people on I've heard tons of people on social media say that they prefer the show to the books. And basically, this is the story of the boys is a group of uh, what is it? They market or commercialize superheroes, and there's a group of what do you call them? There's soups, and what do you call the other ones? What's their names again? Do they have a name? Soups or just normal people? Anyway, that hate superheroes because they're not held accountable when they screw up, kill people, break things, damage stuff. Because there's so much money and marketing behind them that they get a free pass on everything. So these people are fed up and want to bring the superheroes down, have them be held accountable for any misdeeds they do, or so you have this main conflict there. And I mean, there's a lot of comedy involved, a lot of there's some gory scenes in it too. I mean, it's a great show. I love it. I like the tone. I know Johnny may not be as high on this show, or at all for that matter, but I love it. I think it's great.
I like the first
And
season. Okay.
yeah, and what's his name was actually Huey. Is that his name? Huey. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's based off of what's the Simon Pegg, and he actually
Simon
plays the
Pegg.
father. Yeah, he actually plays the father to the character that he was based off of in the comics, which is kind of cool. I thought that was fun.
They should have kept his old ass playing Huey. It would have been better than the casting choice they got. My main problem is with a lot of the characterization. I understand the idea of adaptation. I appreciate it, but I want a little familiarity, and I think that they just went too far off the mark, especially with Huey. Like, in the comics, he was supposed to be a little whiny, but in the show, he is just unlivable. He just complains about everything. He never does anything useful. Oh man, I do not get why they do that to certain characters on shows. Another one is the female. Why can't she get out of her own way? She can't beat anybody. She just gets her ass kicked the whole time. It's like, why even bother having that character on there if you're not going to do what the
But
character's supposed? Like,
but the two
it's hard
characters,
for me to watch.
yeah. But the casting of Butcher, I think, was perfect, and the casting for Homelander, I think Anthony Starr does a fantastic job as Homelander. Like,
I like the
I think
Deep. I would watch a whole show about the Deep. He is my
Deep,
favorite
yeah,
character. I feel so bad for him, even though you're not supposed to, because he does do some really rotten shit. But like, oh man, the way the actor portrays him, he is so funny. He is so good. That scene with the lobster is probably one of the greatest things ever. I can say whatever I want to about the second season, but like, yeah, the lobster scene probably redeems the whole show at the end of the day because it is so perfectly done.
mhm. But the what's his name? That's the actor who plays him is Chase Crawford, who is people probably know from Gossip Girls, the one who plays the Deep. Mm. And the relationship I found between Frenchie and Kimoko, I thought that was pretty good. I thought they kept that not bad to the comics, right? They held true to that aspect,
They were
and I
supposed to be
thought,
more friends than him being a simp for her, but yeah, it wasn't. They
yeah,
didn't ruin anything.
no, that was good, and people might recognize her from the Suicide Squad movie because she played the Katana character in the first Suicide Squad movie. So yeah. Mm. But man, I enjoyed it much more than you did. So, but I know you're not the biggest fan of Seth Rogen adaptations, so we'll talk
What?
about that a little later.
Seth Rogen's adaptations of Garth Ennis comics. I swear, the man's life goal is to wipe his ass with everything that Irishman ever wrote. Like, I swear to God.
Yeah, but man, they know how to cast for characters though. I gotta hand it to them on that front. Mm. All right, next up, Doom Patrol. This show is fantastic. I haven't watched the third season yet, which I think just just wrapped up. So the third season is out now. All the episodes are out, so you can binge that if you want. But the Doom Patrol, man, it definitely follows a lot of what Grant Morrison did with the team. Like, I wouldn't say to a T, but it keeps pretty true to a lot of the storylines that you find in Grant Morrison's run on Doom Patrol.
Yeah, his themes and tones are always present, even if they are touching Silver Age stuff or more
Mhm,
modern Doom Patrol stuff.
mhm, mhm. And man, like this too, the casting. Like, I think I've been enjoying shows a lot more than I've enjoyed the adaptations for movies for comic books lately. Like the casting of Crazy Jane is Diane Guerrero, who people may know from Orange Is the New Black. She does a great job of Crazy Jane. Brandon Fraser as the robot, Cliff Steele. He's great in that too. Who else do you have?
Matt
Matt
Bomer.
Bomer. Yeah, he does the voice of the what's his name, the Negative Man, which is he does a good job. You have Timothy Dalton who plays the chief, does a fantastic job. And one of the highlights for me in season one was Alan Tudyk as Mr. Nobody. Oh, so good. I love that actor. I think he does a great job with every role he does. I think he's got great range, whether it's serious, villain, comedic. I think he's a very underrated actor, and you see him in a little bit of everything. Like a movie we all love is Dale and Tucker versus Evil or whatever that one's called. Love that movie. He's great in it. So, like, I mean, everything I see this guy in, he nails it pretty much. I don't think I've ever seen him botch a role. Even the guy who plays Cyborg, the only complaint I have about him, he does a great job, is I always vision Cyborg as a big, imposing dude, and he's like just a little guy, but he does a good job as Cyborg as well. Like, fantastic.
Yeah,
Then
he's about as same height as the girl that plays Jane, and she's not very tall at all. So
no, not
yeah,
very tall
like
at all.
Rita and Robot Man and stuff are all taller than him. It's just
But aside from that, he does a good job. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
he's funny.
he can't do anything about his height, right? And then there's Elastic Girl, who's like the blob character, who kind of she has to focus and concentrate on keeping herself together. So yeah, man, she's played by April Balby. What else was? I think that pretty much sums up the cast. Like, it's a great cast. Like, they handle the subject matter fantastic. Like I don't see how anyone could not enjoy this series. It's a great adaptation. Like, probably one of the better comic adaptations I've seen. Like, true to the comic, they do a great job. Great job. Yeah.
Well, another cool thing is, in the third season, they're actually kind of introducing more Vertigo characters. They had the Dead Boy detective show up. They had a couple other
Yeah.
kind of rare characters kind of pop in, which I didn't expect to see because some of these are Sandman characters, and I know that Sandman's having his own show, so it kind of makes me think that Netflix didn't take these characters, so HBO Max is playing with them, which is neat in my opinion because I never thought I'd see the Dead Boy detectives in live action, and like they were portrayed so well on the show, and they
And
were done so neat. So
one character I love is Flex. What's his name? Flex
oh, Flex Mentallo, yeah, oh
Mentalo.
dude,
Oh, that scene
yeah,
when he's
Flex
in the
Mentallo,
town
and the actor that plays him is so
and
good.
yeah,
Oh,
he's fantastic. That one scene where he flexes wrong and they all start getting off. Oh, it's worth watching all this, like the whole season, just for that one scene. It's fantastic. It's hilarious. So good. So good. Yeah, Pat and I love this show. Yeah. So next up, what do we have next up? Oh, Jessica Jones. See, this is where a lot of people don't agree with me, and that's fine, because this is my favorite Netflix Marvel show. Pat and I ate this show up, loved it. We love this show. It's and the showrunner is Melissa Rosenberg, who is the creator showrunner, and she's worked on shows like, I think, Dexter. I think she might have worked on. I'm not sure if she worked on Supernatural or not, but I know she's worked on Dexter as a writer. Uh, the casting in this is really good. You got Kristen Ritter, I believe is her name. I don't know if I pronounced that properly. Yeah,
Yep.
Ritter, who plays Jessica
Yep.
Jones. Like,
You got it.
I love her. I think she may be a little. It may not be super true to the book itself, but I think the way she interprets the character is fantastic, really good, spot on, and I love the way they adapted the main villain in this. The Purple Man, Kilgrave, is played by David Tennant, and oh my god, I love David Tennant, man. He is awesome, and he plays the Purple Man just wonderfully. I mean, uh, he's probably my favorite live action interpretation of one of the Marvel villains to ever hit the big screen or the small screen. Like, Tenet just blows it out of the water. I think I enjoyed him as a villain even more than Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin. Like, it's worth watching just for him. Uh, Fantastic. He stole the show in the season he was on. Like, wonderful, wonderful. And yeah, like they stick to pretty much the guns on the story for some of the backstory on Jessica Jones when she was the superhero. What was her name? Superhero name? Miss. Was it Miss Marvel? Was it when she used to dress up in the tights and shit?
I forget what she called
Anyway,
herself. Like,
yeah, but they touch on that, so that they do touch on like the way I think it was Brian Michael Bendis that gave the modern take on Jessica Jones.
I thought he was the only person who ever wrote her. I thought he invented her. So that's news
Oh
to
yeah,
me.
but didn't that like
No,
when she
I
was a
think
soup?
was she a character? Like I know that she hangs out
I
with Patsy Walker Hellcat, but I didn't know that like
Yeah,
she was a I thought she was like a character that Bendis brought because he loves his little esoteric side characters. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did just find somebody that appeared in a couple issues and decided to
but
adapt her into like a bigger character.
but I think that's what he did, so he could like take this character and have. This is where I'm saying like where you take a C-list character and you can have all these liberties to really develop a character and push them in different ways, and and I think they did a wonderful job in the comics and did a wonderful job of adapting it for a series on Netflix. Like, this was by far my favorite Netflix series. Like, I like Daredevil, but I mean, this one hit home with me a lot more. Yeah. So that's what I have to say about that. Now, Swamp Thing. This is another one that a lot of people did not like
What?
because
Seriously?
yeah, on Twitter I saw a bunch of people bitching that it didn't stick to the Alan Moore storyline close enough, and but I loved it. Pat and I both loved it. We loved that they went with more of a horror vibe to it. Uh, the tone, it's dark, gritty, uh, and the Swamp Thing has so much lore to it, and I think they handled it wonderfully. Like the way they made introduce the character, how he becomes Swamp Thing. Abigail, I think the interpretation of Abigail in it was fantastic. They even brought in
Blue
what?
Demon.
Yeah, Blue Demons in there, which is probably where the tone changes quite a bit when they get into the Blue Demon stuff. But other than that, it's really dark. Like, it's definite horror all the way through. And like you said, the Blue Demon thing is probably maybe the only cheesy part in it where it kind of gets a little CW-y, but yeah, aside from that, it's got a very serious tone. It's dark. It always takes place at night most of the time. Uh, Wonderful that an actress that is awesome makes an appearance as one of the characters as Sutherland is Virginia Madsen, who you might know from
Candyman.
Candyman. Yeah, she's in this. She's great. You have Kevin Durant, who plays Jason Woodrue, who you might have seen recently in Lock and Key. Who else is in this that people may recognize? I think the rest of the actors, like you have Crystal Reed, who plays Abigail Arcane, and I think she might have been in Teen Wolf. She might have been. You might know her from that. I think Teen Wolf was the movie she
Yeah.
was in. So you got these actors that have maybe had other small roles on other like teen. Well, that's what I found about a lot of these series is they get a lot of these actors that have maybe grown on a teen show that are maybe a little older, and they get them in here to do like these shows like this, and uh, most of the time they do a fantastic job. Like, and this is another perfect example of it. And it's a real shame that it got canceled. We won't get another season. And this was produced by James Wan, who did worked on The Conjuring, all the Annabelle movies and stuff like that. And the two guys, writers, showrunners, one was Gary Doberman, who works with him a lot on his movies, and he was one of the guys in charge of this. And so, yeah, so it's definitely got horror vibes because James Wan was the producer on this. So man, if you I highly recommend it to anyone. Like if you love Swamp Thing, I think this is a great adaptation from the comics and the lore. I don't think you should be disappointed if you go and watch this. And I don't know, maybe start a hashtag to bring like if you can get this stupid Snyder cut, maybe we could get a second season of Swamp Thing.
Oh, I gotta agree with Mel, dude. The Swamp Thing design was just so great on this show. He
Yeah,
looked phenomenal, and when
yeah,
the flowers grew out of his head and stuff, it just looked so neat. You know what I mean? And I like the actor that played Alan before he became Swamp Thing. I don't think I've ever really seen him before, but he's basically what you'd get if you'd Adam smashed Robert Downey Jr. with Charlie Cox. So the guy just like was charismatic to begin with, and yeah, you
mhm,
actually felt bad when he got turned into Swamp Thing, and you find out that he can't go back. And oh man, I didn't even find the blue demon stuff that cheesy. I thought that the Sharknado guy was great. I thought that was probably
yeah,
his best acting since maybe Sharknado 2. And
yeah.
I,
And if
I
you're wondering, he's from 90210, the blonde, rich, spoiled brat kid, Daniel Ian Ziering. Anyway, he's originally his popularity came from 90210, the original series. Yeah, so yeah, you get him in there. So I don't know. Maybe it's because I associated him with 90210. I couldn't get past that for the Blue Devil. Maybe if they would have picked a different actor, I would have like. Yeah, I don't know. That was
Well,
maybe
see,
the
like he's
only.
transcended 90210 for me because he did Sharknado, and I love those.
Yeah,
So like
yeah,
he redeemed himself in a shitty way in my eyes. So
yeah. I guess. Yeah, he wasn't bad. He wasn't bad. I don't know. I think I just couldn't get past the 90210 thing, maybe. But a great
but
series, man. I love it. I love it. I highly recommend it to anyone.
and I think you could get the DVD set for it for like I think $9 at Walmart.
Yeah,
Definitely pick it
I
up.
think so.
It
Nine
has a
bucks. Yeah.
it has a decent ending to tell you the truth. It doesn't end too well, but it's not super open ended. It has an ending, so like that's better than you get with a lot of shows that just kind of got canceled. Yeah, Ian Ziering's up in here, man. He's a blue demon. He's awesome.
Yeah.
He's like naked half the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, we'll get to my last one. Let's get this moving along. Yeah, my last one, The Tick. I love this show. On this, there's been several. This is another one that's made it as from the comic. They did a. There's two live action show adaptations to this. There's one from the 90s, and in the 90s as well, they did an animated series of The Tick. And Amazon brought it back a few years ago and did another adaptation. And what's great about this is every time it was the actual creator of The Tick, Ben Endlund, who was the actual creator, producer. He was in charge of it for every iteration of this. So it's wonderful. You have the actual creator there as the producer for all three shows. And this one, man, I loved it. It's cheesy, it's fun, like it doesn't take itself seriously. Like this is and I think each episode is maybe a half an hour, so you can blast through it really quick. You got Peter Serafinowicz, who plays the Tick, and man, I love him as the Tick. I think he has the tone. He nails it out of the park, and it's wonderful. He's fantastic, and he steals the show. And there's one character in here who plays like a bit of a crazy guy who wears a aluminum foil on his head, who always hangs out of the Arthur Everest. He plays the Moth character. Uh, Griffin Newman plays the Arthur Everest. He's the Moth character, and there's this crazy guy with a foil hat. Tinfoil Kevin is his name, and it's played by Devin Rattray, who you may know from, you may recognize him. You'd be like, man, that guy looks so familiar. You know why? Because it's Buzz from Home Alone. It's Macaulay Culkin's older brother, right? Buzz or Biff? Buzz, I think it is. Anyway, he's in this, and I was like, for the longest time I'm watching, I'm like, I recognize him from something, so I had to go check it out, and I was like, oh yeah, it's Macaulay Culkin's older brother from Home Alone. So I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, you get Alan Tudyk. He actually plays a voice. He voices Danger Boat in this, and he's pretty funny in it. And he has a thing. He has he has a thing where he creeps on the Moth character. He's creeping on him when he takes a shower in the boat, and he's like, anyway, you gotta watch it. It's too fucking funny. And then you have Jackie Earl Haley, who plays the Terror. He's the main bad guy, and you may know him from the Watchmen movie. He plays Horshack, and he was on the Preacher show the first season. You've probably seen him a little bit everywhere. He is probably doesn't want to be known for Freddy Krueger in the remake of the Freddy Krueger movies. You see him a little bit everywhere. And
he was in Bad News Bears.
Was he in that? Okay.
Yeah, when he was a little kid. Yeah, he's been an actor since like the 70s.
Yeah. You see him, like, he's been in a lot of stuff, but yeah. And there's a guy who plays Superior. His name's Brandon Hines, and you probably recognize him if you watch it from the new season of Lock and Key. So a lot of these actors, they cross over from comic genre shows to comic genre shows, and yeah. But yeah, I think if you're a fan of the Tick and you like that slapstick, offbeat, humorous type of superhero story, this is great. And I think they adapted it wonderfully because Ben was involved himself. The creator of the Tick was the producer, so it's going to be handled properly. And I think it was great. Like, if you want something lighthearted that isn't hard hitting or just a fun, easy watch, the Tick will definitely fit the bill.
I need to check this out still. I haven't seen this adaptation. I've always meant to. I forget about it when I'm on Amazon. And after hearing you go on about it, I really need to check it out, especially with some of those casting choices, because I'm a huge fan of the comic book, and I loved the cartoon. The first TV show was, but I'm down to check out another one, especially with what they can pull off on streaming. Because when it came out, I wasn't really sold on the idea of streaming shows, but I'm gonna give this a shot. It sounds awesome.
And the guy who plays the Tick, what's his name? Peter. You'll probably recognize him. He often plays comedic roles. He's had a small role on Guardians of the Galaxy. He was in Spy, the Italian agent that is always hitting on Melissa McCarthy. He was Shaun of the Dead. He was the roommate that they hate.
Yeah, he was the fuck-a-doodle-doo guy, right?
Yeah. He's the roommate they hate, Peter. I think his name was Peter. He actually used his own name for Shaun of the Dead. So he's a great actor. Like, he does a great job in comedic roles. So yeah, he does it perfectly. Like, the Clueless kind of. You have to watch it. He does a great job with the character. Like it almost feels like Tick came off the page and he's right there live in front of you. He does a great job.
All right.
So those are
I'm
mine.
on that. Cool. starting off, just going in order, I'm talking about the actual real only good show that Netflix did for Marvel comics, and that is Daredevil. And I like the second season best. I know a lot of people will probably give me shit about that, but the first one was a masterpiece as well. It totally took one of Frank Miller's more mediocre entries into Daredevil, Man Without Fear, and really brought it to life in a perfect way. I love that they nailed the costume, but I like all the neat stuff that they added to it. I think that that was what was missing in the comic is it was so rushed, whereas the show, a lot of people give early Netflix shows a hard time because of the filler, but I think that something like an origin like Daredevil's needs a little time to work out, and I think the first season did a great job of building him to the red suit, and I can't put a nicer spin on it, but it really picks up, in my opinion, in the second season. I love Elodie Young and her depiction of Echo, and I loved what's his name as
Vincent D'Onofrio.
Stick. What's his
Oh, Stick. Yeah.
No, no, Stick.
Yeah. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I can't remember his name either right now.
Scott. Um, Glenn Scott. Glenn. Yeah, he was so good, and
Yeah,
he
he was
just
good. Yeah.
looked like the character, sounded like the character should, and I loved the whole training thing between them. But I got to give John Bernthal's Punisher credit. He was a great part of the season. I think he is sadly for some reason the only thing that from that season people look at, but I think the actual depiction of the Elektra saga was done so much better than the film. I think it was done superbly. I really, really appreciate what the showrunners did with that season. And we can't go anywhere without talking about how this show revolutionized fight scenes on television because even in film, I think this was the first time I actually saw that John Wick style fighting. When you saw that hallway fighting scene, like you didn't see fights like that outside of Korean movies like Old Boy and shit. Now it's commonplace. Now you see them in anything. But when Daredevil was beating the hell out of them Russian guys in that hallway in one take, that was revolutionary. That changed the way that people filmed their fights. And then when season two came out and he's beating the hell out of those dudes down the hallways and the staircases and stuff in that apartment building, that even did more. So I think this show really kind of helped bring along action as we know it, and it really just is my favorite superhero, at least A-list superhero from a big two company. Brought him to life in the most perfect way. I think Charlie Cox exemplifies the character. I think that I can't see anybody else playing him now. You know how a lot of people are about Tugboat McGuire and Spider-Man or like Christian Bale and Batman? That's how I am with Charlie Cox. I do not want to ever see anybody in my lifetime besides him playing Matt Murdock because I think he played him so good. I think that the guy from Idle Hands was awesome as Foggy. I think that John Favreau was the perfect Foggy, but I think the kid from Idle Hands that played him on the TV show was super good. And Vincent D'Onofrio is what steals the show, in my opinion, though. Like
Hmm.
he is the kingpin. What Charlie Cox does for Daredevil is this is even shown up by what D'Onofrio does as Kingpin, which is masterful because I didn't think anybody besides Michael Clark Duncan could play the character. I think because I thought that you actually had to be a giant to play the giant, but D'Onofrio is a good sized dude, and like, oh
He's a
man, did
tall dude, man.
he?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he brought it
Mhm.
home, man. Like some of those scenes when he's talking about his childhood and stuff, when he's being emotional and not just violent, like he'll break your heart. Like he actually makes you care about Wilson Fisk, and that's not easy to do, especially with a disgusting
Yeah.
villain like the Kingpin.
Yeah. He's one of those
Yes.
actors that he steals the spotlight anytime he's in anything he does. Like Vincent D'Onofrio is a fantastic actor as far as I'm concerned.
And yeah, dude, the third season, a lot of people haven't seen it. Most people I know are like that even love the show didn't watch it because it got canceled so far so close to it that they just were like didn't know if they should even watch it and most haven't, but I think that the guy that plays Bullseye did a good job. I really like this version of Bullseye. I think that it was setting up for really neat things that I hope now Disney's got the contracts back. They follow up on because they have a gold mine sitting right there that they can just pick up and play with now. And if they don't, shame on them.
I don't know. Maybe the
Okay.
rumor will come true that he'll make an appearance in Spider-Man. Who knows?
Well, I know that they got him signed up for something. Like Charlie Cox is
Mhm.
hanging out and he's doing stuff with them, so he is going to be appearing. I don't know if Spider-Man or not because I don't know why Spider-Man would need a lawyer. Well, then again, he is in trouble for killing uh Mysterio or some shit in the last movie,
Mysterio.
right?
Yeah, yeah. Like it got
How
filmed.
dare you
So
kill Jake Gyllenhaal? Yeah, dude, there's no way Matt Murdock would defend him for after killing Jake Gyllenhaal. Like no lawyer would. Like you can't kill Jake Gyllenhaal and get away with it, Spider-Man. But
yeah,
zipping
that.
right along, my next pick. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
No, I was agreeing with you. Daredevil is definitely. It's right after
Oh,
Jessica Jones. It's close. It's almost a tie for me.
it's the best. It is. It's the only good one, really. I don't know. Maybe Iron Fist is almost as good as Jessica Jones, but next up, I have the Sci-Fi Channel short-lived show for Deadly Class, which was almost Sin City-esque in its adaptation, in my opinion. It was so close. It was so perfect. The animated sequences drawn by Wes Craig, Chef kisses. It was beautiful. The children that they cast for this show exemplified. They just embodied the characters. The boy that played Marcus was Marcus. I mean, he even had the
Yeah.
jacket, but man, he had that emo crybaby tough guy thing down. Perfect. I swore that he walked right off the page. The girl that played Saya, she walked right off the page. The girl that played Maria, she actually one upped her character. Like that girl, I don't know why she's not famous. She should be even bigger than she was when she did the show because she took a character that was already awesome like Maria and she amplified it. Like she gave it a bullhorn and she was a powerhouse. She kind of really wanted to steal the show. But it wasn't just that. Even the smaller characters like Billy and Lex, like they were cast so well and like the two punk kids that
Mhm.
played them, they were so funny and
Yeah.
all the scenes with them were so great. And you had Benedict Wong as Master Lin, even though he didn't look like him, he was just perfect as the character. The only thing that I wish, but it would have been too hard to pull off, is to actually film it in the San Francisco underground because it's too temperamental. But aside from that, that was the only nitpick I had with the show. I think that it was done perfectly. I think that it captured all the tones and the episodes where they go to Las Vegas and did the acid, so
Yes.
perfect. They translated it perfectly from the fucking page, dude. Like how did this show not get watched? How did it not get kept up with? How did it get canceled? That is just ridiculous to me.
Yeah, I don't understand because as someone who hasn't read the comics, like this show stood on its own easily. It was a fantastic show even without the source material. And if you're saying they adapted it so well to the source material, like why did this not get the viewership it deserved? Like Pat and I watched it and we loved it. We thought it was great. Like couldn't get enough.
That's right. I keep forgetting you haven't read it yet. Oh man,
Not
once you
yet.
read it and then if you rewatch it, you'll see what I mean, dude. Like it is some of
Mhm.
the stuff that's from it is just so beautifully brought right over.
Mhm.
Like the scene where Marcus and Willie are arguing about comic books, and Marcus is going on about the Hernandez brothers, and Willie pulls the gun on him and tells him that he likes Chris Claremont, and what's his name's Dark Phoenix better. Otherwise, he's gonna shoot
Yeah,
him in
yeah.
the head. Like that was just just translated so perfectly, and it was the actors did it like they meant it. It was hilarious, like just like
Mhm.
the scene in the comic book was. And I'm like, how were
Mhm.
people not watching this? Like I
But
cried
like
the
I say,
night that Sci-Fi canceled it.
like you don't even need to read the book to appreciate how good this show was. So it should have been a success regardless. And like I don't know, maybe it's just because it was on Sci-Fi. Maybe Sci-Fi just doesn't market their shit properly.
Well, they have a bad reputation. They're known for Sharknado. You know what I mean? Nobody expects
Yeah,
quality programming from them,
yeah,
tragically, which is
yeah.
messed up because they have great shows. It's just they don't take their movies seriously.
Mm. Yeah.
because one of my other picks is going to be one of their shows that's going to be coming up in a minute that was
And
short lived and should have gotten more love too.
I'm so surprised, like based on the quality of that first season, why Netflix didn't pick it up after, uh, like Rick Remender got the rights back, like where he could shop it around. Like, why didn't someone else pick this up? Because the cast was great, the writing was awesome, the like you said, the effects, everything was great in this show. Like, if they could do it with Lucifer, then this show should have been a home run on Netflix.
If it was on Netflix, it would have been done better. It would have had probably a better budget. And yeah, I would have said that I would have think that it would have probably been lighted a lot more better. There would have been some better looking CGI for it because there were some spots that were a bit touchy, especially in the drug scenes. But you know, they're drug scenes, so this bad CGI doesn't really hurt them. But if it was on Netflix, it would have probably been a tighter production, and I'm not sure why that fell through because Rick was working with them a little bit, like he is doing his Last Days of American Crime movie, or
Yeah,
they had
on
adapted
Netflix.
that.
Yeah.
I don't think he likes people talking about it. I wouldn't either because he got totally Seth Rogen with that movie, but um, I think that he should have still worked with Netflix on this because as much as
Mm.
I love Sci-Fi Channel, I don't think that they really understood what they were trying to do with this, which is tragic because anybody who knows me knows that Deadly Class is my favorite comic book that's running right now. It is a cultural phenomenon, and I think that you know, a lot of people I know haven't read it yet, and I think once more people I know do catch on with it, that it'll even just keep getting bigger and bigger because that was the weirdest thing about the show is because I never pay attention to numbers, and after every episode I would come onto Twitter and it would be so huge, everybody would be so excited, everybody would be tweeting Rick Remender, and my feed would just be full of new fans being like, oh my god, this is amazing, I'm going and buying all the issues tomorrow. So I thought that like, oh dude, this is huge, and like, and next thing I know, it's like Deadly Class got canceled, and I was just like, well, fuck me for living. Thank you very much, world.
Yeah, I feel your pain. The same thing happens to Pat and I when we like shows. They get canceled often. So yeah, I feel your pain, man.
Right, right. Let's see what I got next. And next up is another Sci-Fi Channel show I really love. This one at least got 2 seasons. This was,
Yeah,
of course, based off. This is Happy, based off of Grant Morrison and Derek Robertson's hard-boiled noir graphic novel about a grizzled cop whose daughter gets kidnapped by a creepy homeless Santa Claus during the Christmas season, and he is guided by a unicorn Pegasus cartoon that is going to help him do one decent thing in his life before he dies. That is the that is the idea of the graphic novel, which is already insane. Now you take the TV show, you insert like a deviant, evil children's show host, and all these other elements to it, and you get this immense masterpiece of epic proportions. Like I did not. Happy is my favorite Grant Morrison graphic novel, and I absolutely adore pretty much everything Grant's ever written. So this thing was already sitting on a high pedestal. But then when I watched the adaptation, it just, oh man, you had the crazy possessed mobster, you had the kid show host, you had all the extra stuff added in that just drove it to this insanity plateau that I didn't know could exist in live action, and it was glorious. Like this show is just, it's hard boiled, it's gritty, it's noir, but at the same time, it's probably one of the most surreal and absurd things you could watch. I mean, it's almost like a French
yeah.
circus or something, right, Joe?
It's good. Like I, Pat and I watched this, and it's just so absurd and ridiculous and over the top at times, and rude and crass. Like it's all rolled up into this one beautiful package. And season one was good, but season two just knocks it out of the park. Like I loved season two, and that retirement home scene. I don't want to give the twist away, but there's a scene at a retirement home that's just and the fight, the choreo, like they really did a great job with the slow motion and the fights in the second season. It's a one like a wonderful, wonderful second season. It's great. I love it. And they cast like this like we were talking, Johnny. I think the casting was perfect for this, right? With Patton Oswalt as the voice of Happy, and what's the dude's name? Molina or from Law and
Christopher
Order?
Maloney.
Maloney, yeah,
Yeah, Chris Maloney.
as the main character is. I mean, man, he was so good in this, so good. Like, I love his character. You fall in love with him right away. He's so good.
Well, because he is so unhinged. He is just, and his one-liners are great, but like you're so used to seeing him on Law and Order SVU, like just this serious cut and dry cop, and then you're watching him in season two, and he's running around in these garters through most of the season. Like he punches his own grandma. Like just so many of the scenarios that he goes through and acts his way through, and you can't even believe it's the same guy that you knew from the other show. He completely changes, but
Uh,
oh man, it is just done so wonderful. I love the idea of the imaginary friends and trying to help out old has-beens afterwards. It's almost got like a sequel to Drop Dead Fred type feel to it in season two, right? With the
yeah,
introduction of more
yeah,
imaginary friends.
yeah, exactly. It's wonderful. Like if you like off the wall, offbeat, crass, funny stuff, man, you guys have to go watch this. It's really good.
Okay,
And
zipping right
how
along.
well, yeah,
No, keep on. Go ahead. I thought
how
you were done.
how no, but how well would you say the adaptation was done from the book?
From the book to the first season, I would say that it was a good 75% accurate. They just added a lot of stuff to tell you the truth, and then they didn't kill him. Like in the graphic
Okay,
novel, I hate to if you haven't read it, but the character doesn't make it. In the show, he does, and
okay,
that's like the big change.
okay. But it stayed pretty true for the tone and the feel, and
Yeah,
they captured it.
stuff that
Yeah,
all the stuff that had to do with him hunting down the Santa Claus, it was done perfectly, and with him owning the mob and stuff, a lot of that was in there. But the possessed mobs, the demon and the kid show host with the crazy demon alien things, like that was
yeah,
all made up for the show. But like
okay,
a lot of the stuff that had to do with him and the actual case and getting his daughter back, that was all adapted really well,
really
right
well.
from the
Okay,
comic.
cool. Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, cool, man.
Next up for me is Joe did a lot of X-Men, so here's my X-Men pick. I did read a lot when I was a kid, and this is probably one of the wildest television shows I think has ever been aired on American television. It's very, very British in my opinion, which I absolutely love because I grew up. My dad had me watch stuff like The Prisoner, so I loved that British style sci-fi, and it was so great to see in a American show, but not just that, one that was based on lore that I love, like the X-Men. And this, of course, takes the story of David Heller, who is Professor X's son, but it kind of does its own thing with it. Like the X-Men don't really exist in this. There's no iota of them. It's not like the Gifted, where all of a sudden the X-Men were just gone. Like there are mutants, but like they're told to believe that like they're crazy, that they don't have any powers until David gets out of prison, breaks out of prison with this other group, and I don't even know how to describe a lot of this show. Like I'm a huge fan of surrealism. I grew up watching David Lynch and movies like Fantastic Planet and stuff. So, uh, stuff like this really speaks to me. If you're looking for stuff with structural narratives, this probably isn't the best show. But if you want to watch something that's just completely singular in its vision, its storytelling, and even the way it tells the fight sequences, because they'll do dance offs instead of actually having fist fights on this show. So it it's not what you would expect from a superhero thing, but it's definitely something I think everybody should at least give a look into because it is it was so different, it was so beautiful, and it was just 3 seasons of something I needed to see come out of Fox with an X-Men logo on it because after all those crap Bryan Singer movies, I needed something, and until New Mutants came out, like this was the one thing that was giving me hope that one day we might actually have something watchable with the X-Men logo on it.
Yeah,
All
it was
right.
good.
And where's my last one? Did I do all five?
I have no idea, man. I
I
think
don't
you're
have any
missing
pictures.
one.
I
You
don't have
did.
any pictures, and I can't remember what it is. And we're almost at the 2 hour mark, so I'm gonna go
Yeah.
ahead and just call it at Legion. So, and I think we had a pretty good run. I think we
Ah.
talked about a lot of really neat adaptations,
Mhm.
and
Actually, I remember now. You only picked four for your show.
oh, did I? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a
Which,
goose moment. I just picked four.
which is all right, man. Man, I didn't think we are gonna. I thought we'd be done after an hour.
Right, you wanted to jump right into talking about it. Like, if I didn't do the anime talk, I think we'd probably have been done in about an hour and a half. But hey, man, we had a good chat the entire time. A lot of people stuck with us, and I think we talked about a lot of really neat adaptations. And the idea that adaptations are a good thing. I still hear to this day a lot of fans that think that the idea of somebody taking their precious and doing something new with it is some kind of ungodly sin. And I catch myself doing it. I remember when Goose posted the trailer for the Cowboy Bebop show, and I think I put up a puke emoji, and that was fucked up of me. But I watched the trailer, and I think I thought the show looked really cheap, and I still think it does. I'm gonna give it a shot though. I'm gonna watch it tonight.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I'm guilty of being one of those guys that like you can't take my precious and make something out of it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's a healthy mindset because I think innovation is a thing that's shared, and I think you know I'm a writer myself, and like I want to do comic books of my own. But a lot of my inspiration I take from music and other things. So I mean, I can't even consider my work to be original. And so like that
Mhm.
whole idea is like you can't use other people's ideas.
Mhm.
It needs to kind of stop, and I think adaptations are a good thing in the long run in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, it could bring in new fans, right, to the medium. So, and comics can use all the fans, you know, it, it could use more fans because a lot of books don't sell that well because not enough people are reading them. And it's a shame because there's a lot of quality content out there. And if these shows can bring in new fans and expand the fan base, then all the power to them.
Amen to that. And with that, we're going to take our leave. This was a very fun, very impromptu episode of Pink Buzz. Pink Buzz is a product of graphic vandalism. That means don't stop reading, don't stop watching awesome movies, and don't stop supporting rad independent music. Until next time, take it easy, y'all.
See ya.